Welcome to the History and Heritage podcast with me, Liam Blake. Join me as we uncover hidden stories and insights that shaped our world. From mysteries to legacies, join us on this journey through time. Welcome to the final episode of the History and Heritage podcast's series on the Russian Revolution. This is episode 5, where we'll cover the October Revolution and the Bolshevik seizure of power. Let's briefly recap our journey so far. In episode 1, we covered the pre-revolutionary landscape and the split in the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, or RSDLP. In episode 2, we explored the February Revolution and the formation of the Provisional Government. Episode 3 examined the period of dual power and Lenin's return to Russia, and episode 4 delved into the July Days Uprising and General Kornilov's attempted coup. That brings us right nicely up to today, where we focus on the October Revolution, which was a pivotal moment in history where the Bolsheviks seized power and changed the course of Russia and the world. By October 1917, Lenin believed it was time to act. On October 10th, which was October 23rd in the Gregorian calendar, he convinced the Bolshevik Central Committee to vote 10-2 in favour of an armed uprising. Lenin argued that any delay would risk losing momentum gained after months of Bolshevik build-up in Soviets across major cities like Petrograd and Moscow. He declared, "The majority of people are on our side. We must take state power into our own hands." This decision was not without controversy, reflecting the internal debates within the Bolshevik Party about timing and strategy of the uprising. Lenin's argument was based on several factors. Firstly, the Bolsheviks had gained significant support in the Soviets of the major cities. In Petrograd and Moscow, they now held majorities, giving them a strong base for revolutionary action. Secondly, the ongoing war had further weakened the provisional government's position. Soldiers were deserting in large numbers, and the government's decision to continue the war was deeply unpopular. Thirdly, the economic situation in Russia was deteriorating rapidly. Food shortages were common, and inflation was spiralling out of control. Lenin believed that these conditions made the masses more receptive to revolutionary change. However, not all Bolsheviks agreed with Lenin's call for immediate action. Lev Kamenev and Grigory Zinoviev publicly opposed Lenin's plan, arguing that an insurrection was too risky and could destroy the party. Despite their objections, Lenin's vision prevailed. Kamenev and Zinoviev's opposition was based on several concerns. They feared that a premature uprising could lead to a bloodbath, with the party being crushed by government forces. They also argued that the Bolsheviks should wait for the upcoming Constituent Assembly elections, where they believed the party could gain power through legal means. The internal opposition highlighted the complexities and divisions within the Bolshevik leadership, even as they moved towards revolution. It also demonstrated the strength of Lenin's leadership and his ability to push through his vision despite significant opposition. While Lenin provided strategic leadership, Leon Trotsky played a pivotal role in organizing revolutionary forces as chairman of the Petrograd Soviet. The newly formed Military Revolutionary Committee, MRC, became the command center for the planning and executing the uprising. Trotsky, who had only joined the Bolsheviks in July 1917, quickly became one of the party's most important leaders. His organizational skills and charismatic leadership were crucial in preparing for the revolution. The MRC was officially created on October 20th according to the Gregorian calendar, under the pretext of defending Petrograd from a possible German attack. In reality, it was a revolutionary headquarters that would coordinate the Bolshevik seizure of power. The MRC coordinated armed workers called the Red Guards, sailors from Kronstadt, and sympathetic soldiers from the Petrograd's garrison. Their strategy focused on occupying key locations across Petrograd, railway stations to control transportation networks and prevent loyalist reinforcements from entering the city, bridges to regulate movement within the city and isolate different districts if necessary, post offices to cut off communication channels for Kerensky's government and control the flow of information, telegraph offices to control information flow and spread Bolshevik propaganda, banks to manage financial transactions and prevent government access to funds, and power stations to ensure control over utilities and potentially plunge parts of the cities into darkness if needed. Trotsky's leadership was instrumental in ensuring the success of these operations, which were crucial for the Bolsheviks' control of Petrograd. He worked tirelessly, often going days without sleep, to coordinate the various revolutionary forces and ensure they were ready for action. The catalyst for the October Revolution came on October 24th, according to the Gregorian calendar, when Alexander Kerensky, the head of the provisional government, ordered a crackdown on Bolshevik newspapers and the arrest of key leaders. This move backfired spectacularly, giving Trotsky and the MRC justification for immediate action. Kerensky's decision was a desperate attempt to forestall the Bolshevik uprising, which he knew was imminent. However, it only served to accelerate the revolutionary timetable and provide the Bolsheviks with a pretext for their actions. The Red Guards and revolutionary soldiers began occupying critical points across Petrograd with little resistance. Bridges were seized, allowing the revolutionaries to control movements within the city. Railway stations were occupied, cutting off potential reinforcements for the government and securing the revolutionaries' own supply lines. Post offices and telegraph offices were taken over, disrupting government communications while allowing the Bolsheviks to spread the message, and banks were secured to prevent financial transactions that could hinder the revolution. The speed and efficiency of these operations caught the provisional government off guard. By the end of October 24th, much of Petrograd was effectively under Bolshevik control, and that led to a similar event to what happened in France with the storming of the Bastille, but in this case, it was the storming of the Winter Palace. The culmination of the October Revolution centred on the Winter Palace, where the members of the provisional government were holed up. On October 25th, according to the Gregorian calendar, as delegates gathered for the Second All-Russian Congress of Soviets, revolutionary forces moved against Kerensky's government at its headquarters in the Winter Palace. The iconic moment came when the battleship Aurora, anchored in the Neva River, fired blank shells at the palace. This was the signal for revolutionary forces to begin their final assault. Despite the drama of the moment, the actual storming of the palace was relatively anticlimactic. Red Guards and revolutionary soldiers encountered minimal resistance as they entered the building. Most of the palace's defenders had already fled or switched sides, underscoring the lack of support for the provisional government, and the members of the provisional government who remained were arrested. Kerensky himself had already fled the city earlier in the day, unsuccessfully searching for loyal troops to defend his government. The ease with which the Winter Palace fell symbolized the collapse of the provisional government and the triumph of the Bolshevik Revolution. With victory secured in Petrograd, Lenin emerged from hiding and declared that power now belonged to the Soviets, representing workers, soldiers, and peasants. At the Second All-Russian Congress of Soviets, as Bolshevik and socialist revolutionary delegates walked out in protest, Trotsky delivered one of the most famous speeches of the revolution. He declared to the departing moderate socialists, "You are pitiful, isolated individuals. You are bankrupts. Your role is played out. Go where you belong from now on, into the dustbin of history." This dramatic moment encapsulated the Bolsheviks' view that they were on the right side of history, sweeping away the old order to usher in a new era of socialist governance. The Congress then proceeded to pass the Bolsheviks' first decrees, which would have far-reaching consequences for Russia and the world. And this led to a decree which led to the formation of a group called the Sovnarkom. The Congress passed two landmark decrees. The Decree on Peace, which called for an immediate withdrawal from World War I through negotiations with Germany and its allies. This decree appealed directly to a war-weary population and the soldiers who played such a crucial role in the revolution. And the Decree on Land, which abolished private property and redistributed lands to the peasants without compensation to the landlords. This addressed one of the core demands of the revolutionary movement and secured peasant support for the new regime. Following these decrees, Lenin announced the formation of a new government called the Sovnarkom, which was short for the Russian words which meant Council of People's Commissars, with himself as chairman. This marked the beginning of the world's first socialist government, a momentous event in world history that would inspire similar movements globally. The formation of the Sovnarkom represented a complete break with the previous governmental structures. It was composed entirely of Bolsheviks, with key positions going to Lenin's closest allies. Trotsky, for example, became the Commissar for Foreign Affairs, while Stalin was appointed Commissar of Nationalities. Despite their success in Petrograd, the Bolsheviks faced significant obstacles in consolidating their power. Their support was weak outside major cities like Moscow and Petrograd. In many provinces, loyalist forces rallied behind Kerensky and other opponents of Bolshevik rule. Strikes by civil servants disrupted governance, and banks initially refused to cooperate with the Sovnarkom, creating administrative and economic challenges. On November 4th, and guess what I'm about to say, in the Gregorian calendar, Sovnarkom decreed itself the authority to pass legislation without approval from the Soviet Congress. This controversial move undermined the principles of Soviet democracy that the Bolsheviks had championed and foreshadowed the centralization of power that would characterize the Soviet state. The Bolsheviks also faced opposition from other socialist parties, including their former allies, the left socialist revolutionaries. These groups accused the Bolsheviks of establishing a dictatorship and betraying the principles of the revolution. In the crucial days following the seizure of power, Leon Trotsky worked tirelessly to secure support from garrison troops while organizing revolutionary defenses against counter-revolutionary threats. His leadership was instrumental in ensuring the rapid consolidation of Bolshevik power within Petrograd, despite external challenges from loyalist forces still active elsewhere in Russia. Trotsky's role in the Petrograd Soviet was pivotal in coordinating the uprising and rallying support for the Bolshevik cause. His oratorical skills and organizational abilities complemented Lenin's strategic vision, making them a formidable leadership duo in the early days of Soviet rule. As Commissar for Foreign Affairs, Trotsky would soon play a crucial role in negotiating Russia's withdrawal from World War I, leading the Soviet delegation in peace talks with Germany and its allies. One of the first acts of the new Bolshevik government was to dissolve the pre-parliament, which had been established by Kerensky as a temporary representative body. This action marked the definitive end of Russia's brief experiment with parliamentary democracy under the provisional government. The Bolsheviks saw the pre-parliament as a bourgeois institution that had no place in their vision of a socialist state governed by Soviets. This move, while consistent with Bolshevik ideology, further alienated moderate socialists and liberals who had hoped for a more inclusive political system. While the Bolsheviks had clear political goals, they lacked a coherent financial or economic plan for governing Russia in the long term. Their focus was on immediate priorities like ending the war, redistributing lands, and addressing the needs of urban workers. This lack of comprehensive economic planning would soon lead to significant challenges. Food shortages persisted, exacerbating the hunger that had helped fuel the revolution in the first place. Strikes and worker unrest continued to disrupt production in many industries. The uncertainty surrounding the new regime's economic policies led to financial instability and a lack of foreign investment. And the Bolsheviks' economic policies in the immediate aftermath of the revolution were largely improvised and often contradictory. While they advocated for workers' control of factories, they also needed to maintain production to support the war effort against counter-revolutionary forces. The October Revolution marked a seismic shift in Russian history, ending centuries of Tsarist rule and introducing socialist governance under Lenin's leadership. It fundamentally altered the political and social structure of Russia and had far-reaching consequences for the entire world. The revolution inspired revolutionary movements worldwide, providing a model for communist parties and left-wing organizations in many countries. It also irrevocably divided socialist factions within Russia and internationally, creating a rift between communist and social democratic movements that would persist throughout the 20th century. The establishment of the Soviet Union as a socialist state would have profound implications for international relations, setting the stage for the Cold War that would dominate global politics for decades to come. However, the revolution also had darker consequences. As historian Orlando Figes observed, slowly but surely, the shape of a new police state was starting to emerge under early Soviet rule. Opposition parties were suppressed, and institutions like the Cheka, which was the precursor to the KGB, were established to maintain Bolshevik control. The October Revolution remains one of the most controversial and influential events of the 20th century. Its impact continues to be debated by historians and political theorists to this day, with interpretations ranging from viewing it as a necessary step towards social and economic justice to seeing it as the beginning of decades of totalitarian rule. To sum up episode 5 and, in a way, all the previous episodes, the Russian Revolution, and more particularly the October Revolution of 1917, was a watershed moment that reshaped Russia and the world. Its effects would be felt for generations, influencing political ideologies, sparking revolutionary movements, and altering the course of international relations throughout the 20th century and beyond. And there you have it. There is the end of the series on the Russian Revolution. I have an idea what I'm going to do next, but if you have any ideas, contact me on Instagram, which is Lean Like Podcaster. On that note, goodbye.